Hey guys, in the last video we worked on creating this more realistic player movement by adding friction and all sorts of stuff. And just for demonstration purposes, I'm going to change the friction up here from 1 to 0.5. And what this will do is just give us a little bit more slide. And I don't know if you actually, it's giving us an error. An integer is required, got type float. Right. So what I think this means is that when we draw a rectangle, and I'll give you the exact line, when we're drawing this rectangle, it requires a integer for player X and player Y. And what we're doing with player X and player Y turns it into a float, which means it has a decimal. So what we need to do is just make it so that Python doesn't have to do this itself. We just need to put int surrounding these different player X and player Y. Now, I hope you could see this, oh yeah, I can't. Okay, I hope you can see that there's friction, and I can even add more, slide to this. So instead of 0.5, I'll do 0.1, and this will give us a lot of slide. Like so. I hope you can see that. There's definitely a lot more slide now. And this is super cool. If you haven't, go watch the last video. I'll link a playlist to all of the videos in the video description down below. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to create an actual cookie and then how to create collision and how collision will work. So first of all, we need to create some variables and then draw another rectangle, which will be the cookie. So down in our code, let's go into player. We need to actually create a new section for cookie. And we're going to have cookie width with an underscore, cookie underscore height, and then of course cookie color. And I'll set this, I need to set all these to, I'll have the cookie be 20 by 20, and then we need the color to be, I don't know, I'll make it green, why not? And then we need to give it, I think that's actually all we need to give it. Yeah, it doesn't need as many options as our player does because we're not controlling it. So yeah, now we need to draw an actual rectangle. So down in our draw section here, we can actually just copy this from the player and we can paste it here and give it the different properties. So instead of player color, it needs to be cookie color, and I'll spell that right. And then we need, oh, I forgot, we need to give it an X and a Y. So in variables, we can give it an X and a Y here. So I'll just take cookie underscore X and I'll just do a quick new line, cookie underscore Y, and then we'll set these to 0 and 0 for now. Actually, let's set it to something else. Let's just set it to 50 and 50. So it's kind of, that will make it so that it's the players here in 0, 0, and then we have the cookie here right after it. And yeah, that should be everything we need for the cookie. Let's go back down to the draw section, make sure we have cookie X instead of player X, along with cookie Y here. And then I'll just copy cookie because I'm going to be using this a lot. Player width, which should be cookie width, and then cookie height. Like so. Now we have drawn the cookie, and I'll just create a new line here so that we can kind of label these. So this is draw cookie, and then this one here is hashtag draw player. And I can't actually see the end of this, so I'm just going to go into options, configure ideally, and I'm going to change the size to 10. Why not? Okay. Right now, everything's a bit smaller, but we can see more. So I'll move these to the end of this, to the end of the commands, the code, because for me, that just makes it look cleaner. We define sections with their own lines, and we define different pieces of code at the end of them. Yeah, this should work just fine. And I'll just say fill screen black. Right. Now we have everything to draw the cookie. Let's run it and see what we get. Right, you can see the green cookie right here. Now when we hover over it, it doesn't actually do anything, and that's because we need to give it some collision. And also you'll notice we don't get any more errors as well. So let's close this and let's look at how we're going to add collision. So here I'll bring up my paint window, and let's just well, this is going to be rectangle collision. So rectangle collision is quite simple. Other collision is a little bit harder to do, but rectangle collision is pretty simple. So let's say we have two rectangles. Excuse my bad drawing. And I'll put one over here as well. And these are rectangles A. Oh man, that's so bad. A and B. Right. Now, the way we do this is we first need to define a middle. So this is the middle of rectangle B, the middle of rectangle A. And we can do this by saying here is the X and Y. I shouldn't use yellow. I'll use dark blue. That's where the rectangle is drawn is in the top left corner. Now, we can define the middle by taking this and adding half of the width and then half of the height, and that will get us to the middle. Now, what we can do with the middle is kind of define a distance. So I'll use green, and I'll show you that we can go up for the x distance, and we can calculate that by finding the absolute value of the difference between the two middles x. So let's say this has x of 10, and this has an x of 20. Sorry, y of 10 and y of 20, because this is higher than this one, so it's going to have a lower number. Now we can find the distance with the y distance, and we would just need to do 10 minus 20 or 20 minus 10. It doesn't really matter because we're going to find the absolute value of that, which would be negative 10 or 10, which the absolute value of that would be 10. So the y distance is 10. The x distance, we can do the same exact thing. Let's say this one has an x of 30, and this one has an x of 5. So 30 minus 5 would be 25, or 5 minus 30 is negative 25. So if we find the absolute value of that, we get 25. Now, what we can do is we can subtract the widths. We'll start with the y. We can subtract the height, half of the height. So we started by adding half of the height. Now we can subtract half of the height because we're working with the middle. So let's just start with b, half of the height. Let's say this height is, let's say the height is 5. Why not? The height is 5, so we subtract 5 from 10. Now let's go to A, and what we're looking for here is the height here, which would, let's just say that's 2. Why not? The height of this, half of the height, is 2. So the full height would be 4. And the full height here would be 10. It makes it look like, I made it look like the full height is 5. The full height is 10. Half of the height is 5. So, and then we subtract 2. Right. So we have 10 minus 5, which is 5, and then 5 minus 2, which is 3, which means that if we go this way, over this, actually I should do this in green. If we go this way over this line, then we can calculate the x as well. So this kind of shows you how it works. We can just calculate the distance between the two middles and then subtract the height here. subtract the height here, and then subtract the x and the x, and then we have a distance between the closest points of the two rectangles. That's basically how it works. So it would find the distance from this corner to this corner, kind of. Anyway, let's try to write this in our code. And what we can do is, if these distances are 0 or less, that means that the two rectangles are touching each other. I hope this makes sense. It kind of makes sense in my head. I don't know if it'll make sense in your head, but let's minimize that. Let's try to write this in the code. So in our update section, we need to, actually in our refresh section, we need to find the middles. So let's do player underscore center. I'll say center instead because I don't know, that's more correct. Anyway, player center equals x, so player, and actually player center x and player center y, because it's going to be x and y. So player center x equals player underscore x, and then player x minus width divided by 2. I'll do that in parentheses. I don't have to, I don't think, but that just makes it kind of easier to look at, easier to understand. That should be the center of the x, and then I'll just copy this for player y. There's a lawnmower going in the background. I hope you can't hear it. Also, my family's watching something, probably the Mars rover landing or something. I don't know. And then we can change this to player y, and then change this to height. And spell that right. Height divided by 2. So that should find the player center, and then I'll just copy this for cookie. And I'll copy cookie. We have it down here somewhere. Where's my cookie? Here we go, cookie. I probably could have just typed it out, but that's fine. Right, so I'll copy player, change it to cookie, 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 with height. Perfect. Oh, one problem. This needs to be player width and player height. Like so. Player, right, and then I'll just copy cookie with an underscore and paste it here and here. Awesome. Now we have the centers for both the cookie and the player. So we also need to move the cookie to a random place when we collide with them. So I'll do that right now. In our functions, I'll define move underscore cookie. And then it doesn't need any parameters. It's just moving a cookie. And that will just set cookie x and cookie y to a random number. So we can now use the random import that we imported in, was it the first video? I'm not sure. Instead of 50, we can do random dot rand int, like that, and then parentheses, and then we determine two numbers for it to go to. So we'll do 0, 0, and then 0, and then width for the x. And the problem with that is that width will make it go off the screen. So instead we're going to do width minus, width minus cookie width. So it won't go off the screen entirely. And then we'll copy this and paste it here. And then we'll do height instead. And I need to spell this right. Right, there we go. And then cookie height. Whoops, cookie height. There we go. Now, when we run move cookie, it'll just move the cookie to a random place. So now, when we detect the centers, which is right here, where did we do that? Was in the refresh. Here we define the centers. We need to use the update section. Actually, we need to define the distance first. So cookie underscore cookie cookie distance? Sure, we'll just do cookie distance x, and actually we'll just do cookie distance entirely. If this gets under, actually we do need to do x and y. I'll just do it. Why not? Cookie distance x, cookie distance y, and then we'll do equals. For the x, it will be player underscore center, and we'll need to do the absolute value of this. Player center x minus player cookie center x, like so. And then we need to subtract both of the widths. So that would be cookie, I'll start with player underscore width, as well as cookie underscore width, which would be cookie underscore width. There. And we can add them together and then subtract them both. So this should find the cookie distance for the x. We can copy this and paste it for the y. And instead of player, it'll be cookie, like so. Yeah, that works. No, wait. No, it's all fine. I just need to be y. Right. That's what we need. And then these need to be height. Like that. Oh, and instead of actually subtracting both the height and the width, we need to actually do those divided by 2. Like so. Right, this should work. There we go. That should work fine. Now we have a cookie distance. Now in the update section, we should be able to check if that distance is lower if cookie distance x is lower than or equal to 0, and cookie underscore distance y is lower than or equal to 0. Now this should work, and if it does, then we need to run, what was it, move underscore cookie, no parameters. Awesome. This should work. Let's try it. If we run this, do we get an error? No, we don't get an error, but we should be there. Yeah, right, it doesn't work. We need to troubleshoot this. Right, guys, so I figured out what was wrong. And the first problem that we have is here, and when we define our centers for the player center and the cookie center, instead of subtracting, we need to add. And that is pretty simple to fix. I don't know why I thought we were subtracting, but that's the first error. And then the second error is that if we run this, the collision should work, but we still have a problem, and that is up here in our move cookie, these cookie x and cookie y variables are not actually the same as they are here. And that is because they are within a define function thing. So there is one simple thing we need to do, and that is right before we use them, we just have to make sure that they are global, which means that they are the same throughout the define and throughout the main part of the program. So in theory, this should work. All the collision should work. I'll grab it. Right, so it moved to a nice random spot like it's supposed to. Then if we collide with it, it moves. Awesome. So now we have collision with a cookie. So I hope you enjoyed this video. It might have been a little bit confusing. I hope it wasn't too confusing. I hope it was helpful, and I'll see you later. Bye.